Okay, here we are in video 2 of furniture restoration. In this video, I'm going to show you all the tools I'm planning on using in this project and some of the products that we're going to be using. And we are going to talk about how to strip, sand, and scrape paint on a project. So paint or stain, the process is pretty similar. So these are the tools I'm going to be using. Cold chisel. This is a chisel that you hit with a hammer to break off rusty screw heads that don't unscrew anymore. Got a hammer. Big, large glue scraper. Small glue scraper. Rubber gloves. Wooden mallet. Wire scraper. Wire brush. Screwdriver. Chisel. Make sure it's a sharp one. Metal scraper. A larger cold chisel that I might have to use. I haven't decided yet. Pair of pliers. Plastic scraper. Here's the paint stripper that I'm going to be using. You can get any paint stripper from Canadian Tire, Home Depot, Rona, anything like that. I guess it's not Rona, it's Lowe's now. Anything will work. Just go down the aisle with all the paints and glues and you should be able to find it or ask somebody to help you. I have steel wool here. This is going to help for removing some of the paint stripper later on. I also have a trusty sanding block. Big stack of sandpaper. It doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to work. Power sander is nice. Not mandatory, but it's nice. And we have paint thinner. Get this at the same time as you get this. They work together because the paint thinner neutralizes the paint stripper and makes it so you can reapply paint onto your project. Those are the tools. Oh, and I have this. I dug it out from the back of my shed. This is Benjamin Moore Restorer Wood Restorer, and it removes dead wood fiber. It's a concentrated formula, and it removes stains from heavy mold and mildew. I hope I don't have to use this, but I have it as an option. You don't need all of this stuff. I just happen to have it all, so it makes it a little bit easier. Things I'd say you must have are scraper of some kind, chisel, not super necessary, sandpaper. Sandpaper is critical. That's super important. Okay, so if we look at our cabinet here, and I'm going to spin this around to the side here, and it's a little bit difficult to see, but I won't take you. In this panel here, I'm going to use the paint stripper only. In this panel here, I'm going to sand only. In this panel here, I'm going to use the scraper only. And in this panel here, I'm going to use all three of them together in order so you can see what they all look like. Okay? All right, so I've put on the rubber gloves because I'm about to use this paint stripper here. I also went and grabbed a brush. It has to be a brush with fibers. The foam brush, the paint stripper will just disintegrate it, but make sure it's a cheap brush because you will be throwing this brush away right after. You need some sort of a container to put the paint stripper in, and and for me, I got an old coffee cup here because, again, it's kind of a one-time use thing. We're going to take this here, and it's kind of a gel. Pour out a little bit, not a ton. Then we're going to grab our brush. Make sure you're doing this in a well-ventilated area because it doesn't smell so good. And we're going to apply the stripper onto here. All right, so I've applied the stripper to this top panel, and I've also applied it to the panel that we're doing all three on because this is the correct order. So we're going to go stripper, scraper, sanding. And you go stripper, scraper, sander on this bottom panel here. So if I were just to grab a scraper, I could probably take a fair bit of this stuff off. So I'm going to work on this for a few minutes while the stripper is doing its work right here. Okay, so scraper is doing its job here, and it's okay. It's not 100%. So let's see what the stripper with the scraper works on our multi one here. So it comes off in lobs. You have to be sure to scrape off all of the stripper as you move along because this stuff is pretty nasty. You'd hate for it to get onto your finished project or onto the table you're working on or something like that. So that looks okay. I'm going to scrape all the stripper off of this panel here and this panel here. Then I'm going to scrape this a little bit more with this guy here. And I believe I'll do it with this glue scraper a little bit as well. I'll be back. All right. So we have the three initial panels going. We've just done the stripper here. And we just peeled it off with the scraper. This one here, we used the metal scraper. We also use this large glue scraper here. And this one here, we've done the stripper and this scraper and this scraper here. With the stripper material, you'll find that you might want to do a couple of coats to get as much of it off as you can without using as much elbow grease. Go ahead and give that a shot. It really depends on how porous the surface is and how many layers of paint and what kind of paint it is. Mine is going okay. It's going to take a fair bit of work, but that's all right. Furniture restoration is okay. It's all pretty much like that. So stripper, scraper. I've done the stripper and scraper. Now I'm going to grab sandpaper. And to start, I'm going to be using 120 grit sandpaper. And I will be just sanding on this section here. So it's okay, but it's not going very well because the finish on this is absorbing into the sandpaper, so I don't think I'm going to be super duper successful here. I'll give it a shot for a few minutes. So I've been at this for a few minutes. Not really much has happened, and if you look at my sanding block, not going very well. So something I might do is I'll fire up the palm sander, put a lower grit, like 80 or maybe even a 60 grit sandpaper in, and give that a shot. I'm also going to sand this a little bit, and I might do another coat stripper here and here. So basically what the point of this is, you have to use lots of different ways and you have to be flexible with how you're going to strip paint off of your project. What works for me on this corner here might not work for you anywhere on your project. So you want to make sure that you are trying as many options as you can. You saw how many tools I had laid out. You work your way through that. Okay? I'm going to keep working on this, and I hope you do the same.